Good
Episode
afternoon, everyone.
10.
Yeah,
10.
nice. My name is Brian Boudin, and his name is...
George Beaton. Lovely to
Well,
be
there we
here.
go. It's great to be back. Episode 10 of the Data Mix. The eagle eyes amongst you will notice that we are not in the same room, so we apologise about that. We just had some logistics, which meant it was not possible. But it's very special for us because it's episode 10. We've made it to episode 10, George. How does that feel?
Pretty epic. Yeah, who would have known? I mean, this is approaching the record that we got for QVMS, so it's not bad.
I mean, you look pretty stunned by it all, to be honest. I asked you that question and you didn't quite know how to react. So we should also foreshadow this with the fact that I've had some streaming issues, like literally.
On cue. And Brian, you're not just doing that, you are actually having on cue streaming issues.
Yep, we're just
Okay.
repeat that again for me because I didn't get there. Give it another go.
You're blocky, Brian. You're blocky. Glitching.
So I am going to carry on, and what I'm going to do, George, is just for the minute, I'm just going to throw out the chat if that's okay.
That's all good with me. I'm going to tell the world the kind of week that I've had, because I think this is probably all written in the stars for us. Yesterday, in fact, this morning I was still in London. I'm now in Bonnie, Scotland. Yesterday, I think we were approaching 30 degrees centigrade, which is in the mid to high 80s, I think, if you speak Fahrenheit. London was busy, hot, and expensive, unexpectedly expensive. So I'm glad to be back home in Scotland in the rain, believe it or not. It's actually raining here. But the grass needs it, and the flower beds need it, so I'm pleased about that.
Well, that is good. The weather's not too bad here. It's looking a little bit overcast, but the sun is generally speaking out. So I still have no idea if I'm coming through okay, but I'm going to assume.
You are, Brian. I can hear this.
Good. Good. We're doing a lot better. That's good to hear. Right. So, I mean, it's amazing that we're at number 10. We've got an epic guest coming on. I'm so happy to be here and doing this with you, mate. It's been such a great journey when you take over QVMS and we're here. But you know how we like to dabble in things that we know absolutely nothing about. Well, today's episode is another of those dabblings. And I'm really excited to have this guest on, and I've bigged her up quite a bit before we bring her on. So now I'm just going to bring her on. Our guest for episode number 10 of the Data Mix is...
Hey, Rivera. Hey, Jocelyn.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Happy.
Good to see you down here. Yes, George is that way. You're down there. Yeah.
Hey, Brian, George, Brian. There you go.
Yay.
Okay.
So,
sunny Singapore. So you're talking about weather. In here, every day sunny. So no, nothing much.
Okay, all the S's. Scotland, Singapore.
So it's all tying together nicely now. And I think what's really cool about this episode as well is that I think you could be even watching on Jocelyn's channel right now, because I believe she is restreaming as well. I have not checked all the LinkedIn lives yet, but I am seeing some comments coming through, so that is a good sign. let's just get a kick off here. I have no idea what he's referring to, but Adrian has called us snazzy. I don't know if you know what that word means, Jocelyn, but it means
I
that
have
pretty much the
no
coolest thing
idea.
is cool. That's
Is it
like, yeah,
cool word?
you're a good
Okay,
girl
good.
at school.
Good.
So
Hey, Adrian.
thanks, Adrian. You're giving away your age though, because I'm sure snazzy is a cool word from the 80s, maybe the
Ah,
90s.
well, what can I say, mate? It's not much of a reveal nowadays. Hi David. Hi. Hey Mert, how are you doing? Thanks for
Hi,
joining us.
Mark.
We've got you may know some of these people,
Brian. Another
Jocelyn.
Brian.
We've
Yes,
got
I
Brian here.
know.
We've got Brian from Washington
Hey,
and
Brad.
our good pal Joe as well. Thank you, Joe.
Joe.
We
Joe,
made it.
yeah.
Woo, we made it.
One of the cornerstones of the show. Hey, Joe.
Exactly. And Joe is just showing off now. He's at the Snowflake Summit, probably with
Oh,
Vizlid, I would
nice.
imagine. So he's just showing off now.
Nice place to
Um,
be.
and lastly, we've got
Anvesh.
Anvesh here as well from
Hey,
India.
Anvesh.
So thank you to everyone who has joined the show. It's epic to have you all here. And we have Jocelyn Rivera. And the topic of today's show, and actually, the truth of this is that Jocelyn and I had a WhatsApp conversation about what should I title the show, and Jocelyn said, "You choose," so I chose. And I don't feel very inspired by this title, but I think it is quite apt for what we're going to talk about today. So the journey of a BI analyst into sorry, probably the quotes weren't needed, Jocelyn. That was my fault. Accidental could have just sat without the quotes. But into accidental popularity. So before we get into the deep water of any of that, Jocelyn, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can start digging into some of this happening in the world the last 6 months or so.
Sure. So now it feels like, a work interview. It's like, hey, tell us something about yourself. So, hi everyone. I think some of the ones that actually showed in here knows me already. So I've been a BI analyst for almost 9 years. No need to calculate the age, please. We don't discuss age anymore. Okay, it's irrelevant. Okay, so I've been a BI analyst for almost 9 years now. Currently, on a career break. Another favorite question that always asked by recruiters or hiring managers, why you're on a career break. So I've been on a career break now for almost, I think, 8 months. I started October. So yeah. So what else? I've been on LinkedIn for since January this year. Okay, so I've been sharing quite a bit about my journey in BI, some knowledge about BI analysts as well, and what else? Okay, not related to work or something. I love Netflix. I watch documentaries, movies and such. I love walking as well. I love reading. So those are the things that I usually do. And biking. But my husband is the one that likes to bike, and I have to tag along just to ensure
Bi-
that he's
Bicycle or motorbike?
bicycle.
Bicycle.
I,
Okay.
I don't have the courage to do the motorbike for sure. Nope. Just bicycle. Just bicycle. Yep.
Fair.
So I can see that the chat is well armed with people who are introducing where they are as well. And I think it's, first of all, we've got a huge time gap, right? Because we're in the UK and you're in Singapore, so we've got quite a bit to traverse there. So we've done well to get this show arranged. To begin with, to be honest. But there was quite some interesting personal topics in there. I've got a few shows that I've been watching on Netflix trying to finish. I've got two kids, so I don't often get a lot of time to finish shows, but I finished two shows, so maybe we can talk about those without spoilers later on in the show as well. But I just think it's worth having a start here and just actually going back to the title of the show here, Jocelyn. So, one of the things that I have been watching, and LinkedIn, for the BI analysts out there, LinkedIn has no API for understanding how many followers you have or anything like that. You have to
No.
trust what LinkedIn gives you, or use Shield maybe to get the statistics for that. But your ascendance has been glorious in the last 3 or 4 months. I have been watching
Yeah.
that follower count. How has that? I mean, let's talk. I mean, we're going back to the Arnie movie, Accidental Hero. There, you're an accidental hero of LinkedIn. right? How has this felt for
What
you?
was this
Because
planned? Was this
it,
planned?
it was
what
okay.
happened?
Okay, that's a funny thing. Everyone was like telling me, "Oh, okay, you've been so popular on LinkedIn now and such," and I'm like, "Uh, I never really intentionally wanted to be popular on LinkedIn." To be honest, January when I started, since I'm on career break, right? So I was like, I'm bored. I don't know what to do with myself. Okay. So that's the first thing. I don't know what to do with myself. And then I was like, okay, maybe just share a couple of things on LinkedIn, So the first post that I think got a bit viral would be the books that I've been reading during my career break. Okay, so
Okay.
those books is more on visualization, relearning charts. Because what I decided during my career break is, Jocelyn, you need to learn things because you haven't been learning quite a lot while you are working. To be quite honest, I was so packed with work. I don't have really much time to read all the books that I bought. So that's the first one. And then the second that went viral is the resume dashboard, which
Yeah.
is odd because I was thinking it's not, I was thinking I did it just for fun, to be honest. And then I did it, okay, for all my followers, don't get mad, okay? I did it for the purpose of hiring managers and recruiters finding me out. Okay. So don't get mad, okay?
It's an honorable reason.
Yeah, don't get mad, okay? So that was the main reason why I shared that, that resume dashboard. And then I think it was like 2,000 comments and then like 200, 300 impressions. I think 300,000 impressions. So from then on, people started, asking, "Hey, Jocelyn, how did you become a BI analyst?" Blah, blah, blah. So I love talking to people. That's one more thing. I love talking to people. So every time someone message me on LinkedIn, I actually reply to them as soon as I can. So I think that's when it started. And then everyone is asking a few things about being a BI analyst. So I tried to share and then create more contents on those things. And the good thing about it is that they're not really asking about how to create a Power BI report. It's more on, I would say, more on, how you do your work. What is it like day to day as a BI analyst? Because for us, it's not like just creating dashboards, to be quite honest. And then there are so many contents out there that's about, creating DAX, how to create a calculated measure. So for me, it's more on being a BI analyst in such a way, what is my process? How do I provide workshops? Those things. So yeah, I think from then on, it started gaining, gaining more views as I try to share more. And then since again, I don't have any work and then I was studying as well. So I tried to share things that I've been learning as well. So that's what happened. So it's like in January, I think, yeah, in 6 months. I started like last and January. So only 5 months, 6 months from 600 connection requests. I started receiving so many requests. Requests. I'm like, what the, what's going on? So that's where it started. So to be quite honest, it's more on, I think, two viral posts. I think, and then from then on, it's it went from there and still
So
gaining, still
yeah, I
up.
mean, I think the interesting thing to take from that, Jocelyn, and we talked about this in the pre-call slightly as well, but accidental is actually not accidental, right? Accidental happens because you do the right things and you say the right
Mhm.
things and you post the right things. And
Yeah.
I think there's a really interesting point there that you talked about. Nothing that you necessarily posted about was extremely technical. So I
Yeah.
know some people that are really, really popular on LinkedIn, and they're also very, very technical. So
Mhm.
they're popular for very different reasons, and that people look at them as a technical resource and say, you're my go-to for when I want to understand the underpinnings of DAX, for example.
Mhm.
I don't. I'm saying that like I know what DAX is. As we talk about a bit later in the show, that's not really our backgrounds. But I think from that perspective, accidental is definitely not. And I think that you also put a lot of time and effort into the way that
Mm,
you've distributed your content as
yeah.
well. Before I let George just jump in here, I have to, because we're paired, this is incredible. We're now getting comments from people who are on your channel, Jocelyn, not on
Hey.
our channel, and we can see who they are. So we've got Abdul Rahman here, and we've got Gary. We've got Gary who's
Yay.
joined us from Idaho. We've got Arpit here as well. Hello from Arpit, and
Arpit!
we've got multiple questions coming
Oh
through as
wow.
well. But
Okay.
we're going to keep them to the side, and we're going to continue the conversation a little bit here. George, I'll let you jump in, mate. Is there something that you wanted to
Cool.
talk about to Jocelyn?
Yeah, so just going back to how it all started, my feeling was one of the key things there that you said was that you speak to everybody, you follow up. And so
Hmm.
you had two viral posts to start with, and that was the initial momentum that got things going. But you kept it going. That's where I think that's the thing I struggle with on social media. I'm not very good at following up on social media. Brian will tell you that. Brian makes all the posts, and I just retweet them or reshare them. At some point, Brian's going to sit me down and have to have a chat with me about that.
Maybe after this call, George.
Yeah. Oh dear.
and
But
and for me, right, the good thing about it as well is that when you follow up, I learned so much things when I talk to them. To be quite honest, it's not just one way thing. I actually learned quite a lot with the people that I've connected with. So I think now, because I have more time since I don't have any work, most of my time is more on learning, towards learning, and a couple of freelancing job. But other than that, I have more time to actually connect. So I think that's a good point, George. If in case you have, if I say this, if you have work, it might be tough. Even for me, it might be tough to actually follow up.
yeah, and then I think the other key thing there was it's that it seems to be you're very good at talking about the soft skills around
Mm.
about analysis, how to be a Power BI analyst, for example. So it's not just how do I write this DAX query, but it's also, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
seeing some of the comments here. It's about, okay, what project do I choose, or
Mm.
how do you start this thing, and it's all the sort of business skills and the interaction with your stakeholder skills, that's really important,
Yep.
because often, in fact, I think most of the time you are, what is about 80-20 split here, between 80% of the time just trying to get requirements, figure
Mm.
out what to prioritize, who to speak to, where to get the right data from, and the last bit, the fun bit, is actually
Mm.
doing the technical bit. But
Yeah,
it's
exactly. Yeah. So that's why, what I feel with LinkedIn, right? I do see a lot of people, posting more on the technical stuff, which is I love. I learn so much things about the technical stuff, but I just feel like there's less contents when it comes to, the 80%, the soft skill part, and more on leaning towards, like you said, stakeholder management, communication, the process itself, how do you gather requirements. So for me, what I share is something that I've learned over the years that works for me. Definitely it's not something that, hey, I just do this and then it will work. No, it's more on adjustment depending on the company as well. So I think those are the things that we miss. I think when it comes to contents, I don't get to see quite a lot of books regarding those things as well, or any contents, online contents regarding those. So I just feel those are the things that I want to fill in. And then those are the things that I'm more interested on sharing, because to be honest, I'm not a Power BI DAX expert. I'm not. So to all my followers out there, don't ask me DAX. Because I take a lot of time. Okay, I need to rethink about it. So every time someone asks me, it's like, oh no, and then it will bother me. I don't if I don't reply. So those
yeah.
are the things that I think. Yeah,
I feel like we need a marketing campaign around DAX, because I'm scared of DAX, and I've written two or three queries in DAX, but it puts me off. But can I also say at the same time, just not to just have a dig at Microsoft, Click has a sort of similar language called set analysis. And when I first saw set analysis, it freaked me out. And I thought, my goodness, this looks horrible. I don't want to have to learn this. And I can't think how I'm going to learn it, or work with it. But I think after a few months of just forcing myself to do it, it became second nature. So maybe that's what would happen with DAX. But I feel
Exactly.
like
And then
we need a marketing campaign around it to demystify it and de-scare it.
yeah, and then I feel for Dax, right? The thing is that everyone is like, I feel this one is my own opinion. I just feel like everyone is so fearful about Dax. The thing is that you don't have to learn the whole Dax functions, to be quite honest, to do your work. There's only specific, functions that you need to learn to actually create amazing dashboards. And then for me, there's only a couple of reports that I would really have to learn, complex DAX, but most of the time I don't really use that much in reality in my line of work, to be quite honest. So I just feel like people get this fear because when they try to find, books or context, it's like, oh, it's gonna tell you to do this. But in reality it's not. So I just feel like you need to really practice more on the real life scenarios, and then you go from there.
I mean, just to hang on to that, you mentioned a few minutes ago the resume example, and I think that's a great one because, first of all, it's right planted in real life, right? Everyone needs a resume. And it's
Yes.
not the same as writing a sales report because not everyone needs a sales report or cares about a sales report, but everyone cares about having a job pretty much. So to write about something that makes a practical difference,
Hmm.
and again, I'm not, I don't want to turn this into a Power BI and Click argument, but one of the sort of
No.
things that we look for or we hope for in the future in Click is a way to share things publicly. And obviously, with the Power BI service, it's really like there's ways to share your portfolio as a Power BI
Mm.
person, right? And
Yep.
I think that's something that from people who live on the Click side of the fence, that's something that we're really envious of because we don't have that capability. And
You don't.
I know that you and I, Jocelyn, have talked on a similar strand about doing something along these lines, and we won't get into that mainly because we don't know how we're going to do it yet. But um,
Soon.
I think it's super interesting the fact that you've chosen that jumping off point because
Hmm.
I would argue that you actually wouldn't have built the followership that you have unless you'd started with the right example. I think
Mm.
starting with that example was a great decision. And I only say that because I myself, way before you, but I did it myself, and it did a similar thing for me. It got a lot
Mm.
of feedback from the community, so I think there's an element of, again, as George mentioned, you don't have to start with set analysis, even though I have to say that Jenny here loves a bit of set
Yep.
analysis. Lol, I don't know whether that lol is serious or not. I'm going to assume, knowing Jenny, that it probably is, but it's a really important point, right? You've got to
Mm.
start with the building blocks. You don't worry about DAX until you learn how to build a report first. You don't worry about set analysis until you learn how to build a CV first either. So it's a really good point there. Um, I think it's worth bringing in a few more of these because if we leave them too long, we're not going to get to them. If I bring up the chat overlay, is that going to work for us? No, it's just the new comments that are going to appear there. So I'm going to bring a few more of these up here as well. Um, so we've got some questions here. We've got Vinit here, who's a fresher and recently stepped into a data analytics journey. And this episode is all about the journey. Actually, it's not
Mm.
about the technical; it's all about the journey.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah,
any
yeah.
tips for freshers and what to
Mm.
focus on and which projects to do? And I think you've got a ready-made answer for this in your posts, probably.
Okay, so for this one, for fresh graduates, the first thing I want you to check is which, if you're talking about, the tools that you want to learn, the first thing that you want to look at is in your country, which tool is the most common tool
Pick one
available.
tool. Just pick one tool.
Just pick one,
One.
please. Pick one. Don't learn the whole lot. Okay, just pick one. So, how to pick one? For me, the best way is to figure out which tool is the most common in your country because you do want to market yourself in your country, right? So, pick one. So, for example, in Singapore, I would say two is the most common one. Okay, don't get angry, Brian and George. It's gonna be Tableau and Power BI. Okay, so in here in Singapore, it's the two most common one. Okay, Power BI and
We
Tableau.
can
But
change that. We can change that.
See? So pick one, okay, and then learn that tool. While learning that tool, I would suggest start reading books about charts. Okay, charts, relearning your charts. Because I know when you were at school, it was taught to you how to create a bar chart, pie chart, donut chart, area chart, whatever. But I think for me, based on my experience, they never really teach you when to use the proper chart. Okay, so
Mm.
for me, that's the most common mistakes, even for me during my time before. Common mistake where I use line chart for a non-time based data. Okay, so those things. So, and other than that, practice, practice, practice. Okay, practice, practice, practice. And please don't forget about SQL, Excel, Advanced Excel, those things, of course. Okay, practice, practice, practice. How do you practice? There are so many data challenges now available on LinkedIn that most of the groups company are doing on a monthly. Try to leverage on those free data set. Learn from it. And the good thing about it is when you share it on your profile, you can get feedbacks. Okay. But okay, feedbacks can be a good thing and a bad thing. You might take it, you might cry if you get feedback. So please, if you need feedbacks, you can tell them, can you feedback, but message me instead. Okay. Don't
Yeah.
comment
Be
it on
kind.
my profile. Okay. Because I feel like we need to be empathetic with people as well. They might not like being called out when it comes to their things. So I would suggest, if you want to feedback on a specific dashboards, ask that person first personally. Hey, maybe you do this. Okay, so don't comment directly. Okay, don't hurt the person. I just feel like sometimes the
No
comment,
hate. No hate.
yeah, no, sometimes the comments of this can be hurtful. It's like, relax, relax. Okay, so those are the things that I would suggest for fresh graduates. And then don't how to say it, don't don't think too much that, hey, I need to find a job, I need to learn Python, I need to learn this, I need to learn this and that. Because in reality, not all companies will have those tools. For example, for me, I don't know Python.
Mhm.
Okay, I never learned Python. Just to give everyone, because everyone is like, no, you need to learn Python. Because for me, most of the companies that I've been to, we do have a data engineer doing those things.
Yeah.
And so I never really had the need to learn those. Okay? So that's my advice to you. And then you can do it. You can find that job.
I love it. You know the that advice about just learn one tool.
Mm,
That's gold. Actually, I hadn't really thought about that. But the market with the internet and being able to work from home around the world,
mm,
there is such a wide market. So if you become expert in one tool,
one.
you're going to find work, and people will go to you because you're an expert in that tool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So don't try to learn the whole thing.
Yeah, you might grow to know a wider tool set as you get more experience, but to
Mm,
begin with, that would be my number one advice
yep.
as well. Is just focus on become really good at one thing, or become not even really good, become good at one thing,
Mm,
right? Because all you need to get your first role is to be good at one thing.
yep.
And
Exactly.
ignore job adverts that say that you have to have 20 years experience in something that has only been around for 4 years. It's ridiculous. Just don't.
Don't.
What how does that kind of affect the job market in Singapore, Jocelyn? If that's not too difficult a question to
I
answer, but in the
see.
UK we have a lot of those types of adverts where to earn £25,000 you have to have 9 years of Python and 5 years of Power BI and have mentored 27 people.
Yeah.
Okay.
You get a lot of that.
Okay, the good thing about it is it's not common in Singapore. So
Yeah.
that's a good thing. Okay. So for Singapore, especially for fresh graduate, they will just tell you that at least you know this tool. It doesn't mean that you have an experience in this tool, because it's two different things. You know this tool, you know Power BI or you know Tableau, but you don't have any experience for it because you're fresh graduate. Come on. So
Yeah.
in here, it's not that common that they're gonna look. You will see such ads. To be honest, yeah. Thank God.
Because Jocelyn, what I've found is the next question is, okay, so you're an expert in this tool, that's great, but how much the next level then is the expert in the tool almost becomes prerequisite, and then a nice to have is, are you an expert in this industry? Because I think
Mm,
as a as an analyst, you end up doing your Power BI, your click trade. You become expert at that, but you might not know the business
yeah.
that you're
Yeah.
working in. And then that becomes a sort of added advantage.
Mm,
Then, so if you can then slowly start building up experience in different industries, that's what to work on, and that's hard enough.
mm,
So I don't think you can do that and be an expert in multiple tools as
correct.
well.
Exactly.
It's
And
the same thing as what George is saying. You can't be, well, you can, but it's very difficult. You can't be a data analyst, a BI analyst, a visualization expert, a data scientist, a secret. You can't be all these separate job roles. And I think there's a mass amount of confusion in our market right
mm,
now about the
Mm.
skills that people should have to do their job. Because let's face it, there's probably only about this many people in the world that can do Python, R, SQL, Click, Power BI, Tableau, all of these things we see in adverts, and it's important just to stay focused, I think,
mm,
on
yeah,
one particular
exactly.
thing.
And I
Um,
think in here in Singapore as well, the knowledge in industry is good to have most of the time. So if you see a
yeah,
post, okay, they're looking for a data analyst or a BI analyst, and then the company is like, let's say, banking. They will indicate in the post where if you have any banking industry, it is good to have, but then they will indicate, okay, preferred, it's a preferred, something. But I think because for the business, right, they do know that for us, we do go from one industry to another. So for each industry that I go to, they know that I don't have any industry knowledge on that company. The good thing about it as well for L'Oreal, the last company that I've been to, is that I don't have any Power BI. That's the first time that I actually use Power BI. So before that, I was using Tableau, and that was and then when they hired me for that role as a Power BI, Power BI analyst, they were like, "Oh, it's okay. It's you can learn it so fast because you already know Tableau." And then they gave me enough time to actually learn the tool. So I feel like for companies, right, it really depends on what they're willing to, to take on. It's either you learn, you have an experience on the industry, or you have a experience on the tool, and then they're willing to teach you about it.
Mm.
I would say there's maybe even a third category there, Jocelyn, and that's having experience in the process rather than the tool or the industry. If
Mm.
you've got experience that you can show the process that you've been through, and
Oh,
we'll talk about that in a little bit, that is something that companies value because you can teach a tool, you can
yes.
teach an industry to a certain extent as well, but it's much more difficult to teach the natural elements of understanding a process. That
Mm.
tends to be the type of thing you have some natural talent for or you don't. Not to say that it couldn't be taught. I don't want to be too controversial about it, but I think it's
It
the
can be
thing that
taught.
it really helps if you have a starting point there.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
Um, I need to go back to some of these comments, Jocelyn, because
Oh
we're
yeah,
going to
yeah.
miss
Go
them.
ahead.
And we're going to miss them if we don't go back. So first of all, let's just have a little bit of recognition that people do think that you
Oh,
have like that. Really,
Here, here.
that energy really comes through when you're talking to us, and I've seen it in your posts and the amount of effort that you put into it as well. There's
guys,
lots
it's
of
coffee. It's
lovely comments
coffee.
on here for you. But we've also got Kavita who here again.
Hey,
How
Kavita!
do we resonate with people? We resonate with people by creating content that they care about, right? I need a CV. I see a post about how to build a CV for myself. I'm going to interact with it. So thanks, Kavita. I've seen a lot of your stuff as well, which is really good too. So let's see if I can just scrape through a few of these. I'm going to. This is a bit of a joke one, but I'm going to put it up anyway because it's from Adrian. We always tend to have a pie chart conversation
Oh
in
no!
every episode. Um,
Oh no! Pie
so
or not? Okay. Pie if
let's
it's two
let's hear it,
segments.
Jocelyn. Let's hear the arguments. Let's go.
Pie or not to pie? Pie if it's two segment only. If it's more than two, don't pie.
Reply.
Two segments. That's it. Two
Okay,
segments.
2 segments only. But I did create one with more than 2 segments, but it's for just to see the reactions. So yes, pie 2 segments. Don't pie if it's more.
George doesn't get to have input into this conversation. It's two sections or nothing when it comes to a pie chart,
You
right?
see, I'm thinking that I could build an entire session on a data mix session on how I built an entire dashboard and ran an entire company just with bar charts. So
Mhm.
so I reckon that,
Seriously?
so bar charts with color, bar charts vertically, bar charts horizontally,
Stacked
stacked,
bar charts.
grouped. I
Yep.
think you can do a lot with bar charts. A lot.
Bar charts, yeah.
Well, can we all agree that 90% of day-to-day visualization problems can be solved by either a bar chart or a line chart, right? And it's
Yes.
Yeah.
boring. It's so
It's
boring.
boring. Yeah, I
Like
know.
like the stuff on my wall, not boring. Bar charts, just boring, boring, boring. But
I
it's
don't
the
know,
right
Brian. I'm
choice
gonna
most of the
I'm
time.
gonna show you a dashboard this afternoon that I built that's almost entirely bar charts.
George, is this like one of those sessions like when the show goes off air on television, like the James Corden late night show or whatever it is, and they have a chat and exchange horrible stories afterwards? Is it going to be like one of those?
It is going to be a horror story, yes, yeah.
Okay, okay, I look forward to that. I look
And you're
forward
going
to
to
that.
say, George, we can actually improve this with multi-segment pie charts. That's how bad it was.
Well, there we go.
Multi-segment pie chart, seriously.
In the interest of like broadness, Kavita has also said, since there are over 100 chart types, there's one for every use case, and that probably is true. But you
Yes.
probably, again, if I'm giving some advice to someone who's starting as a BI analyst or that type of role, I'd be focusing on the top 4 or 5 key charts and just not moving away until you've mastered the bar,
Mm.
the line chart, the scatter.
Mhm.
Gosh, is a KPI object probably. You need to understand how that works to
KPIs.
begin with. And you can creep a pie chart in there to begin with. If it's a donut
Mm.
chart, I'll accept that. But you shouldn't widen your palette too quickly, I think. Discuss,
Mm.
folks. What do you think? Just keep limited to begin with in terms of the visualize. It's tempting to use so many just for the sake of it,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, I
So how
Yeah.
think
do you feel about that, Jocelyn?
yeah, I think for especially when it comes to charts, right? The thing is that um you need to understand your audience best. Okay. If you are working, for example, for me, I'm working for retail industry, finance industry. It's not about having the most attractive dashboard there is. Okay. It's about having the dashboard that they can use every single day that will allow them to figure out what's going on with their work. That's the main thing. So the problem with having, I would say, the most graphical, beautiful dashboard out there is that it gets hard to the eyes, when
Mm.
because you have to look at it every day. It's not for display that you look at once in a month. Most of the time it's going to be either every day they're going to look at it, every week they're going to look at it. So for them, if I can find the details that I need to answer anything in my work or in the whatever the objective of the report is, that's the best dashboard you can give me. So for me, if to, for all my work, most of the time it's gonna be bar chart, line chart, scatter. Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes pie chart if I couldn't get away with having it in bar chart because the user doesn't want to sign off the UAT. Okay. Because they want to have a pie chart there. Okay. We can go away with pie chart. So for me, I would say stick with the basic first and then try to learn others and then try to sneak it in. But then again, end of the day, it's not about you, it's about the users. Okay, it's about those people that will use your dashboards in the first place. So whatever you like doesn't matter unless your user approve it. Okay, unless they are okay with it, that it solves the objective of the dashboard or the report itself. So that's the main thing for me. So I don't most of my reports you wouldn't really get to see it, having so many different different charts, but rather navigation wise, it's going to be having more navigation that they can toggle. Okay, if I want to see the details, then you can see the details. So it depends on the audience as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
I just popped up a couple of comments there. Ronald had mentioned cognitive overload, and obviously,
Mm,
just too many charts is a bad thing.
correct.
It sounds
Correct.
certain vendors would seem to make you think that it's the best thing to have charts just splattered everywhere, but really it's got to be a process, right? It's got to be the right thing. And I think what Adrian meant here was eye candy versus data ergonomics, not orgonomics, which sounds like a book that you would hear at a keynote at a BI conference, data orgonomics.
Oh my god, I'm
Um,
like trying to figure out what it is.
Yeah. And
yeah,
there's one other thing, one other visualization object that we've forgotten, and that is the pivot table. We have to talk about the pivot table
gosh.
because, unfortunately, I mean, it's a fact of life that, especially if you're dealing with a finance team, they're going to want to see their data in a tabular format, in nice rows and columns with totals and subtotals,
Yes.
and you're going to have to get your head around that one way or another.
Yes.
And
I
you can put
totally
some
agree.
colors in the background and stuff, but in the end of the day, it's going to be a table.
Yes. I would say I do receive this question most of the time after I created a fascinating dashboard, and then everyone's gonna ask, can I download it in Excel? I'm like,
Yes,
oh,
yes, 100%.
Yeah.
and you're like, you're
So,
getting frustrated.
so Jocelyn, do you see like the boo down that corner there, that one that's covering his eyes? That's what I think about that.
Guys are like,
Yeah. Like,
you want to
no!
no, and most of the time, if you receive that email, you want to put it on your trash. No, no.
You're
But
like up the top, bar charts here. Yeah, bar charts, we're pleased about that. We've got line charts, yeah, that's okay. But
good.
pivot tables and tables, no!
But
Yeah,
okay,
It's a real problem.
realistically,
It's a
okay,
real problem.
realistically, okay, in my in my experience, okay, when it comes to finance reports, I do have tables still, okay,
Okay.
but the thing about it is it's not accessible by everyone, okay. You limit it to all those people that requires it, okay, so you don't provide a report for everyone to go directly to the tabular. So for me, top management, managers, team leads, usually it's going to be, reports that is going to be more on the charts and everything, alerts that they will know what's going on. And then for those that are tabular, it's going to be for those that are finance assistant that would want to drill down to, more specific details. But the thing is that I don't do it at transaction level. Okay, because if it's going to be a transaction level, hey, you just go to the source. Why are you looking at Power BI in the first place?
yeah,
Just go directly to the source. Go to your SAP finance thing. Why are you looking at my if you want to look at your transactions, you go there. You don't go here. It's this one is more on the reporting. So the only level that I will go to is you'll have a tabular, but it's not going to be at the level of raw data transactions. No, never. Because the thing is that it's gonna take so long. You have the data source, you go directly there. So I would say reality is even though we don't want to create those reports, there will still be some requirements for it. For example, for that one, the report was requested by the CFO. So of course, CFO, we don't have a choice. we want to
yep,
we, you want to get your salary, you need to do that. so, so we did do it, but I did told them that hey, it needs to be limited audience only because it's gonna cause some performance issue as well. So you need to limit it to number of people that will view it, and of course the refresh time as well. How many times do you need to have it refresh? Is it going to be on a daily? Because again, if it's going to be daily, you go to the data source. Why are you looking at this level, at this granularity? Then go to the data source. So those are the things that I think you need to negotiate with the stakeholders. So for me, you don't just say yes to everything, please. Okay. Just one thing that I want to let everyone know. Don't just say yes to everything. Try to negotiate, you know?
yeah.
So
Because at the end of the
there,
day, you're the expert.
Yeah, exactly. And people have you there for a reason, and it is very important to be able to say no, and that is
Yes.
something that is. I'm trying to find. There's a post here somewhere. I've got so many posts; it's difficult to find anything now. But there was. I'll have a look for it. But there's been a post about communication as well.
Mm,
And what would you recommend in terms of learning soft skills and becoming a BI analyst? And I would again say one of the top things to get good at first is saying no, because one of the first things that you will be asked as a BI analyst in any organization is, can I have that 10 million
mm,
row table in a
yeah,
table so I can export it to Excel? And again, the answer to that has to be no. You can have
mm,
less data, and only in these scenarios can you actually bring it down as well. There you go. I think
correct.
George managed to pull it up as well. But along those lines, what are the other things that have you found useful in terms of learning soft skills for communication elements of being in the BI arena?
I think for communication, right? I think the best way for you to practice if you don't have work yet, and you want to practice it. Say no to your mom. That's the first thing. Try to say no to your mom. If you
Okay.
are able to say no to your parents, you can
That
definitely say
usually
no.
didn't end well for me.
But you were able to practice.
Yeah.
True.
Right? You
True.
were able to practice. But anyways, kidding aside, okay, so for communication, to be honest, it's quite tough to practice it without really having someone telling you or guiding you that, hey, you're not supposed to do this, or hey, uh you're supposed to do this way, or something, someone to mentor you to. I'm lucky enough that most of my boss, actually all of my boss, previous boss, we had a really good relationship, and it's more on them telling me, hey, you need to improve on this. One thing that I would suggest is to find someone that will be upfront with you what is wrong with the way you communicate, someone in your team, to be sure, um, how to learn certain, communication. Am I able to communicate clearly my thoughts and such? Because for me, it's more on, I would say, practice at work. It's not really something that I oh, I want to learn communication or something. No, no, it's not. It's more on, i I've been able to do it while working, and mostly experience as well, what work, what doesn't, and finding out that, for example, before, when I started, I keep on saying yes, and then I learned that, end of the day, it backfires, because um, most of the people doesn't use the report anymore, because I keep on saying yes. They're not using it
Yeah.
because they're making use of Excel instead. So those are the things that I started learning when it comes to communication. Another soft skill that I want everyone to learn as well is when it comes to stakeholder management, because that's, I would say, the most important part as a BI analyst, because you are in the middle. If you have a BI developer outside, but rather you are the BI analyst, because for me, not only am I the BI analyst and developer, we actually have another developer, Power BI developer. So I'm the one giving work to the BI developer as well. So you are someone that is in the middle. So you need to learn how to manage your stakeholders in a sense where you can't say yes if you have multiple stakeholders and you have multiple reports that you need to deliver, and you said yes, and then it's supposed to be delivered by end of the month. Okay. So you need to learn how to manage those things. So yeah, those are the things I think when it comes to soft skill. Yeah, project management, if you can learn how to do project management as well.
I think you mentioned stakeholder management there. I would argue that that's even more important than project management.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if you're in the right role and you're starting your career, you don't get too deep into project management, but you might get some exposure to stakeholder management to begin with.
Yes.
Mm.
It's
And
tough. It's tough, to be honest. Those are the things that can make or break your project. Okay.
well, also, right, some people like there's this common misconception that a developer is the same as an analyst, and technically that's not true, right? Because a
Yes.
developer and I really, I'm going to be very careful about the way I choose my words here, but a developer spends a lot more time looking at keyboards than people, right? And an
Yes.
analyst is expected to be able to do both. So
Yes,
was that
correct.
sensitive enough? I think that was
It's a good
sensitive.
and it's a good
Yeah, okay.
observation, Brian. I like
Yeah,
that. I like the way you put
and
it.
again,
Perfectly said.
yeah, it's this crossover as well about what we're expected to
Mm.
know, and these are not things that are tend to be in job descriptions except for
Mm,
good interpersonal skills. So it's difficult to know what's expected of you when you move into a role like that.
correct. So
Yeah.
I think for me as well, it's during that time when I was interviewed for L'Oreal, it's a crossover. To be honest, it's BI analyst. Expectation is BI analyst, meaning hey, you're gonna be upfront with all the stakeholders, with all our key users. We're gonna migrate from Excel to Power BI. It's not only Power BI that you need to learn. You need to learn all the data sources from POS system for everything, and then you need to have it. You need to communicate with your vendor, third party, third party vendor, and then on top of that, you need to deliver dashboards as well. And then
Mhm.
from then, after there's only two of us, my boss and I, and then we grew the team. So we hired more Power BI developers. So, like you said, it's possible as a BI analyst, you are a developer as well, but it doesn't mean that automatically for others it is the same. So, for other companies, you will have a BI analyst that doesn't do the development, but they do the data gathering, requirements, UAT, workshop, training, but the development itself is being done by someone else, someone else that doesn't even talk with the stakeholders or with the user, but rather talks to you and asks you, hey, what am I going to do next? Something like that. Yeah.
So it's hard. We're expected to do more. All of us
Mm,
are expected to do more, and we don't necessarily have that training to do more or those skills to do more. So it is
yeah.
something that's to a certain extent down to experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, uh, all of you, I'm aware. I'm looking at my clock ticking down here.
Oh,
Unbelievably,
yeah.
we're at 52 minutes already.
That's
So
the
I'm just going to
fastest.
change the direction of this conversation ever so slightly before we finish off with some closing questions from the chat there. So Jocelyn, I want some quick fire opinions on you. You mentioned Netflix earlier, and we can have some thumbs up and thumbs down in the chat if you're listening to this as well. So I don't want any spoilers, please. But Stranger Things 4, success or not a success? Thumbs up, thumbs down, please, in the chat. I
Yes,
think thumbs
it
up, but
is.
we'll listen to and Ozark, final season of Ozark. Any experience of that yet?
No.
Not so much.
No.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that. Pop your Netflix recommendations in the chat, please, before the
Oh,
end.
yeah. I need one. Guys, I
We need
need one. I
more.
need
We
one.
need more. And
So
some of the other things that you talked about as well. You're spending a couple of times we've been messaging, and you've said I'll be back in 3 hours because I've been biking. So how did you get into that, and how far do you go?
Oh my god, I don't know. Because most of the time, okay, for my husband and I, we go biking. We start at around 6 p.m. and then we go somewhere. I think it would take us 1.5 hour or 2 hours. And then we go dinner there. We eat dinner. And then we bike back, which is gonna take us another 1 to 2 hours. So that's the usual route that we go to. So it's every Friday, either Friday or Saturday. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I do have a bike, but actually, I got a new bike during lockdown. I don't know what it was like in Singapore, but in the UK, there was a time during the first or second lockdown where you almost could not buy a bike anywhere. You had to order a bike and
Same.
wait 6 to 8 weeks to get one. Um, but it's pretty awesome now that we are able to do a little bit more from that side of things as well.
Same scenario
Um,
here.
I
yeah,
During the lockdown as well.
yeah. Are
Jocelyn, I
things
don't.
better over there now?
Sorry.
You go, George. You go.
Um, just on the terrain of Singapore, my geography of Singapore is really bad. I think it's quite hilly though, isn't it? You have a lot of hills to cycle up.
Mm, because I stay around, how would I say, it's not city because Singapore is the whole Singapore is city. So we do have a terrain of, not really hill small small hills maybe, but most of it is actually, I would say, city, to be honest. So it's flat
Okay.
everywhere. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. That was a nice little diversion, and we've got from Anvesh. I've got a thumbs up. So I thought Stranger Things 4 was really good, and I'll
It's
only
good.
just say one word. I won't spoil anything for anyone, but
No,
I'll just say Vecna, and we'll just leave it there. Um,
you
so
shouldn't.
while
I
I'm
haven't
doing the
watched Stranger
advertisement,
Things.
You
Um,
should.
Stranger Things 4 Volume 2 is out on the 1st of July, so you've got still got time to catch up before the
Yeah.
final run comes out as well. Um, we're running up on the hour now, so Jocelyn,
Ah,
there's been a couple of questions that have come up that have been
yes.
quite repeated quite a few times. So what I want to do is just bring this up from Vinit just at the end to sort of tail us off here, and it's about book suggestions. So we've had quite a lot of book titles thrown about
I have
in
one
there as
for you.
well, but Vinit has a few. Kavita has talked about um, better data visualizations by
Yes.
Jonathan, and there's another one as
This
well,
one.
effective
This one as well.
visualizations. I've got one too, which I don't know if I have access
My
to. Hang
favorite.
on, we'll have
One
a
of
look.
my favorite. The thinnest one. Come on.
Yeah,
It's thin.
yeah.
That's the best thing about it. It's thin. You get this. I love it.
with a lot of pictures. I like pictures.
Come
So
Love
yeah.
on.
it.
Speaking
Love
of
it.
pictures, I've got to put a recommendation in for Steve Wexler and the Big Picture. It's an
Oh
excellent
yeah.
visualization book that's based on Tableau, but fantastic book, well worth a read, and not thick at
Agreed.
all. Like yay thin, pretty good. So any other ones to recommend just now? Because we can take a few more from the chat if we've got time. Yes, yeah, so
Hold on.
there's a few
I
other
think I
things
have
that are going on here.
another book. Good Charts by
Oh,
Scott
good chart.
Berinato. This one is good as well. And I think last one would be, hold on, where is it? Where is it? Hold on.
Obviously,
Oh,
we won't stray far away from our staples like Stephen Few as well. There's a lot of good
oh yeah,
books by
yeah.
Few.
Of course.
So
Oh,
yeah,
Good grounding.
oh, that one I have it as well. Dun dun.
yes.
This one is the best
Oh,
as
right
well.
on cue. Right on cue.
There you
Right on
go.
cue
I
with
got
you.
it.
There we go.
That one is good as well.
Cool. Well, that's cool about the book recommendation stuff, and I think just touching on the stuff at the end here, you do need to manage stakeholder expectations. Again, Ronald is in
Yes.
there again, so I
Correct.
appreciate we're flitting backwards and forwards here. But I want to
Brilliant.
ask you one more thing, Jocelyn, and that is just about your content that you create on LinkedIn, right? You do a
Ah,
lot of carousels on LinkedIn and that type of thing. What do you use to build that? Is it Canva or is it something else? Just, I'm sure lots of
Canva.
people are interested. Yeah.
Okay. I always get question about it. It's Canva. So I do have the pro license for Canva, but most of the time I don't just use the template that you get from Canva.
Yeah.
I do add in more stuff, to make it more creative, to be
Mhm.
quite honest. And because for me, I am trying to learn more about designing and such. So I try to add in Canva pictures to any of my posts, just to see how I progress when it comes to design.
Yeah. And we
Yep,
had,
Canva.
yeah, a couple of episodes ago, we had Nadi Bremer as well, who is a wonderful data visualization
Mm.
artist. And again, she's traversed that design versus functionality gap tremendously well. So I think it's
Mm.
really a skill that if you can pick up on the side, it's brilliant. And I think, again, just to all the sort of people who are starting their BI journey, have a look at these things on the side as well.
Mm.
It's never a bad thing to learn how to use Canva or something like
Yes.
Camtasia to just help with your editing a little
Mm.
bit and to move forward as well. And with Canva, it's really easy to do it too. So,
Correct. And I actually use Canva to do the background when it comes to Power BI dashboards as well.
oh,
Um,
nice, nice.
yeah, so it's not only for the content; it's also for dashboards as well. So for example, for the icons or the buttons, if I want to make it more, I would say, attractive, I use Canva, and then what I do is I actually put it in the background itself. Because whenever I create a dashboard, that's one more thing that I want to add in is that I do a wireframe of all the dashboards that I do. So I already know where it's going to be placed. So to avoid having, multiple icons in there, just to make it simpler, so what I do is I actually include it in the background. So I use Canva.
That's awesome, and
Good to know.
that is a good way to finish off. George, you look like you're poised to ask your final thing. There, we're just wrapping up here, I think, because we've just hit our hour. But
Underline the word final. Jocelyn, I think we could talk for hours yet.
Yeah, we need to do
That
part
was the
two.
that was the fastest hour. Honestly, that is the fastest
crazy.
hour in
That's
in a long
crazy.
time.
Yeah.
And it feels like this last 3 months of mine has whizzed by. That was probably the fastest hour. Jocelyn, thank
Yeah.
you so much for giving us your time. That has been really insightful, and I
Mm,
think it's been really helpful to a lot of our listeners as well.
yes, you're welcome. And I enjoyed it. Yes. And thank you for all those people who joined in.
Yeah, thank you.
It's amazing to have the double stream going on, and thank you to all our listeners out there. Thank you. We are not worthy, and now we have all of Jocelyn as well. So please
Yay.
do give Jocelyn a follow. Connect with her on LinkedIn. She is awesome to know,
Follow
as
them
you
as
can see from this episode. Well, they're all following us anyway. Hopefully, if not, follow us
well.
too.
Follow them
But
as
yeah.
well.
Look, all that remains is to say again, thank you so much, Jocelyn. This has been awesome, and the hour has literally just flown by, faster than George's rocket that he's got up there,
Yep.
pointed the wrong way just to not get the continuity right.
Thank
Um,
you for inviting me over. I really appreciate it, guys. I really enjoyed it. Yes.
yeah, we've had a great time, and again, hopefully, fingers crossed, this is not the last time that Jocelyn and I will appear
Yes.
on the same screen. So
I
more to
hope
come on
so.
that in due course. Look, thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank you.
wonderful Thursday, and we look forward to seeing you soon for the next episode of the Data Mix. As soon as that is up and sorted, we will let you all know. Have a great Thursday,
Over
everyone.
here.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.